guys? Welcome back to Beyond the Swipe podcast. I am your host, Bernardo Mejia, and today we have a very special episode about saying no in business while also remaining a solid foundation in business. So, saying no and keeping a solid foundation. It's important to say no a lot of times because we have to know our boundaries in business. Okay, if we don't know our boundaries in business, we might be putting ourselves and our reputation in jeopardy. That's why it's very important to have a solid foundation when starting a business, knowing what your morals are, knowing what your value and what your mission statement is. That mission statement will guide you on every decision you make in business. So, today's guest started with a hammer in hand, framing and siding homes, and built a business defined by honesty, commitment, and quality work. He's here to talk about hustling with heart, motivating the next generation of entrepreneurs, and the power of faith in entrepreneurship. Please welcome Erik Hidrogo, CEO of HS Exteriors. Welcome, Erik.
Thank you for having me, man. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing, man? Tell me.
Good. Living the dream.
Living the dream. So, Erik, you do roofing, you do siding, you do all sorts of exterior construction work.
Yeah, I do roofing, siding, gutters. Recently started doing decks, so we just added that to our services.
So, you have a variety of different exterior construction services. So how did you get into that kind of work?
So I started a while back. I was 21 at the time, and I started in framing actually. One of my favorite trades, but very labor intensive. And then I did siding for a couple years. I left the industry for about 3. I was working in the automotive industry, not my thing. It's you need a lot of patience for that. Came back and started doing roofing for a company. I did that for a little bit and then just decided to do my own thing.
Okay.
Decided to do my own thing. I wanted a company that treated their workers right, that treated their customers right, and here I am.
Here you are. So, Erik, did you grow up here? Like, tell me about your early days.
Yeah. So
where are you from?
I'm originated from Torreon, Coahuila, Mexico. I got here when I was 8 months of age, so I've been here for quite a while. Grew up here in Richmond, Chesterfield to be exact. And when I was 15, we went back to Mexico. I did my high school, college down there.
Oh.
And we came back when I was 21, and that's when I got into the trades.
That's when you started working here?
That's when I started working.
Okay.
In construction.
And what was like one of the key lessons that you learned about framing in your early days when you started working? You know, because you started off as a worker, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like most entrepreneurs do.
Yeah. So I started like you said in the labor force as a helper.
Okay.
I was cutting for the framer, for the maestro, like they say in Spanish.
Yeah.
And
they had you bring in all the coffee.
Yeah, they had me carrying all the heavy stuff. So when I was there, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed working in framing, but I decided to, I was like, there has to be an easier way, There has to be something that that guy sitting in the truck is doing that we haven't figured out yet. So I always had that mentality to do better and be better. I learned my jobs really quick, and I scaled up pretty quick, And I've done that on every single job I've done.
And that's I wanted to point out that that's a really cool thing about the trades. If you're a young entrepreneur and you still don't know where you want to go, with your career, with your business, the camaraderie that you build in the trades, you know what I mean? Like there's a camaraderie with, just hanging out with the guys, like during lunch break and
it's different.
Chit-chatting it up, and
it's different for sure. these people you never met.
Mm-hmm.
The first week is a little tense, you know, you're kind of shy,
Yeah.
starting to know each other. After that, man, you're joking around, you know, calling each other nicknames.
Yeah. Especially in the Spanish culture, everybody goes by
Their nickname.
by their insecurity.
So
yeah.
we and that's beautiful, you know, about the culture, the Hispanic culture. You know, you don't have to know somebody for long, and you're already making a really good friend. I have a lot of friends like that. I never thought I was gonna hang out with people like that. I never thought in the world that we were gonna get along, and turns out, you know, after a couple hours speaking, hey man, I think you're my best friend now.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's and you know, in having that culture, you know, within a business is very, very important because, like you said, you want to take care of your employees, you want to take care of your customers. So having that close culture, you know, with your customers, with your employees, it makes them not feel like they're just a transaction.
Yeah.
You know, and it brings them closer to you, and ultimately that's really how you retain employees. You know, keeping them happy. You know.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer of customer service. I take a lot of pride in what I do. I try to be on job sites from day one till it starts. I set clear expectations because, you know, miscommunications happen all the time, and you're always gonna have hiccups. But as long as the customer knows that you're there for them, it goes a long way. And even after the job's done, I still give them a call back after a couple months, like, hey, how you doing? You know, is there anything I can help you? Is your roof doing well? You know, you notice anything that's concerning to you? And they appreciate that, you know. Like, I'm gonna go back to the point you said before. Your workers, you know, without my workers, I'm nothing. You know, you need your workers, and it's hard to find quality workers that want to do the trade with a passion. You know, anybody can go and do it for a paycheck, but, you know, finding good workers nowadays is difficult, and holding on to them is even more difficult.
Yeah.
You know, so I believe, you know, you treat your workers right, treat your customers right, and everything else will just fall in place.
Yeah, because after all, you're in the business of people. You know, it's people that, you know, we're managing in a business. You know, there's going to come a time, maybe in the near future, maybe not in our lifetime, where robots are going to be making the rules. But for now, you know, it's people that make things run. It's people that make businesses run. And so fundamentally, we have to be good with people, you know, and I think that's really like, you know, what we were talking before we started recording is making a difference in your employees' lives, you know, having a positive impact that goes beyond just a paycheck. You know, if an employee wants to one day, you know, open up his own thing, go on his own path, and he has your blessing, like that's a blessing going to come back to you at some point.
Oh, 100%. I encourage them to do it, you know, because everybody can do it, and all you got to do is just focus and make that jump. You know, a lot of people are scared. They're like, oh, what if it doesn't work out? What if I fail? I mean, you're only going to be back in the spot you are now. So I encourage people to take the leap. Obviously, you have to have somewhat of a plan, but I didn't for sure. You know, I just kind of winged it and worked my way through it. But as long as you have a little plan, and you just got to be hungry. You got to be motivated, because motivating, you can lose your motivation really quick. You just got to be focused and hungry and say, you know what, I'm going to go for it. You know, and I encourage my workers. I mean, if you guys want to start your business, go for it. You got like you said, you got my blessing, you got my support. And what I can help you, it's there. And
that's a really cool approach. And I've seen that myself too with my father. You know, he's a very humble man. You know, he's never taking back the opportunity for someone to grow, and it always comes back to you. You know, and so it's a very good thing to have that kind of approach.
I feel like people nowadays have forgotten about that. You know, it's a lot of and I notice it a lot in the subcontractor world.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about me.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, you got to realize that we're all in this together. And sometimes I've had situations where I need a hand, and I got a good relationship with this other subcontractor. And I'm like, hey man, can you lend me a couple guys, or can you give me a hand with this job? I just can't get to it. And likewise, he'll call me, hey, I got this job that came out of the blue. Do you have some people I can borrow? Yeah, of course, And some people want to do it alone, but it shouldn't be that way. I believe that teamwork makes the dream work, like they say. Obviously, you're doing your thing, I'm doing my thing, but there's always going to be things where we can help each other.
That's a really cool point. In business, right? Again, I'm always going to refer back to a lot of books that I've read in my past, and there's a book that I've or an author that I really learned a lot from. His name is Robert Greene. He wrote this book about the 48 laws of power. And there's a law in there, and I believe it's Law 18. And it states that isolation is dangerous, and you should not build fortresses to protect yourself. Okay, staying connected to the outside world and engaging with people provides you with information, allies, and a broader perspective, which are crucial for growth and for avoiding becoming an isolated, vulnerable target. So basically, it's like, keep good relationships with people, even if they're competing against you. Because if you isolate yourself, you're like kind of outside of the circle, and you miss out on a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, you always have to have good relationships with them. I hate to call them competition, but in reality, that's what they are. You're competing in a certain for the work. But at the end of the day, you guys are doing the same thing. You're taking care of your customers. You're trying to give a product or a service, and like you said, I don't know, maybe tomorrow I might need somebody's help. And if I would have burned that bridge, I don't have the face to come out here and, hey man, can you give me a hand?
You're stronger. You're stronger with allies.
And in a relationship, like I experienced it, me parting ways from some of my contractors, because I was a subcontractor. I went up to them and said, hey, I want to do my own thing. I want to focus on this 100%. And I know I've been doing your work for the past 2-3 years, but I feel like if I keep doing this and start doing my thing, my quality towards you is going to drop. So I just rather just part ways. And most of the time, these contractors are like, yeah, man, go for it. Good luck, can you still help me out if I call you? I'm like, if I have time, yeah, of course. And to this day, I still work for some contractors. Hey, man, I'm a little behind. Can you give me a hand? Of course, But I've always had those connections with them. I never burned those bridges because, like you said, you never know when you might need them.
Mm-hmm. Precisely. Okay, so tell me a time where you've said no.
A time where I said no. There's been multiple, but let me tell you a time that I learned that I should have said no.
Okay.
So there was this one project, in my early days, you're hungry, you want to get every single job. And I didn't have a crew for this type of job. It was a flat roof. At the time, I didn't have a crew for the flat roof. So I sent a shingle job, a single crew, to do the TPO.
A shingle.
A shingle crew, yeah.
The shingle that goes on the roof.
A shingle is what goes on the roof to protect your property. Yeah. So anyways, I sent a shingle crew to do a TPO job. The guy said, yeah, I've done it before, and I believed him. So sure enough, he didn't know what he was doing. So I had to, luckily it was only a small little porch on the back, so I was able to come back from that mistake. But that's when I learned to say no. If you can't cover it and if you don't have the people to back you up, it's easier just to say, you know what, I can't do it, but let me see if I have somebody in my contact that can. And referrals. I've done a lot of referrals. Like they ask me, do you do interior work all the time? Because when you have a leak on your roof, more than likely your sheetrock has a stain on it, or you got some water damage inside. And most they tend to ask me, do you do any interior work? I'm like, no, I don't, because you have to be honest with the customer now. You can't offer something that you don't know how to do. And your roof might have been great, and then you start doing these messed up jobs on the inside. It's just, I just rather recommend them to somebody that does that work for a living.
I can definitely relate to that, because you don't want to get yourself into trouble by going out and saying yes to every single job, right? Because you might be doing yourself a disservice, right? And you might be putting the customer in a bad place as well, in a worse place when
how they were
how
on the
they
street.
were, and that's the discussion where that's where I wanted to lead with this question, was that a lot of younger entrepreneurs these days think that more work equals more success, right? And just like you told me right now, in your real life situation, that can backfire,
Yeah.
because if you're just constantly thinking, yeah, I'm just got to put in more work, and eventually I'll be successful, but you're doing the wrong kind of work, it'll just put you.
It backfires because people talk. I have a Google account, so people review. Thankfully, I'm one of the few companies in here in the area that has 5 stars. Own 5 stars. I haven't had a bad review yet, and I hope I don't. And that's
Yeah,
why I'm working for it. To not have that bad star. Of course, we've had hiccups. We've had jobs go south. But what customer wants at the end of the day is you backing up your work. Showing up.
making it right.
If they call and, hey, this is going on, what am I gonna do? I was like, I'm on my way. We'll take a look at it together and we'll find a solution. And not every single job is gonna go perfect. And if you're gonna get into this business, just know stuff is gonna happen, and you have to be prepared for it. You can't get scared on the first time that it goes south. You have to be prepared for hiccups, and it's part of the business. The more you grow, the more you're gonna learn, and at first it's gonna scare you, but after you get the hang of it, you're like, oh, it's another day in the business. Living the dream, like I say. It's tough at first because you get scared and like, how am I gonna do this?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, my business is based on communication, so I rather reach out to the customer and say, hey, this is going on, before the customer comes out and notices it, and hey, why didn't you point it out to me?
Yeah. And that's the honesty, right? That's the integrity, that you got to have, especially with a trades company and a trades business. It's always backed by the owner and his beliefs and his values. So the workers for that company are going to do they're going to follow their leader, so to speak. And if their leader has the proper values set in place, the proper expectations set in place, then you know they're going to be upheld.
Yep.
And like you said, yeah, I'm going to let customers know if there's an issue, right? And even though it's going to hurt me, but it's gonna protect my reputation, because like Warren Buffett said, it takes years to build your reputation and only a minute to ruin it.
Precisely.
So let's talk a little bit about personal, like, building a business while building a family. Like, that's one of the topics that I think a lot of young entrepreneurs don't really forecast. They don't really prepare for. They're like, yeah, I just want to be successful, and I want to have the family. But then that has its own set of problems too.
It's tough. I went through it because when I opened my business, my wife was 5 months pregnant, I believe, at the time. So I made the leap of faith. And there was a point where I didn't know how to balance that personal life with the work life. Sometimes I was 2, 3 in the morning and I was still working on my computer. I hadn't seen my wife all day, and the tension built
Yeah.
till it exploded, and she brought it to my, hey man, like, you're basically, you either got to pick your business or your family.
Yeah.
But it's not about picking, it's about finding that balance where you can take care of your family and you can take care of your business.
Yeah, and I know, and I've seen it myself too, is that with, when you're getting a business off of the ground, your phone is constantly ringing. You want to pick up every phone call that comes to you, because you never know, you might be missing out on an opportunity if you don't pick up the phone, especially in the early stages of a business. And having the right partner and picking the right woman is a key for a lot of men that are gonna build businesses, or that want to pursue some level of success in business.
It's difficult for sure, and my wife's a warrior for that, and I give props to her because she's gone through a lot with me, and believe it or not, she's the backbone of this company. Even though she's been taking care of the kids for the past 2 years, she's getting more involved. But without her, I wouldn't be where I am now. And let me tell you a story real quick before we move forward. There was a point when I was in business for I believe 2 months and a half, 3 months, and I had this dry spell area right
Dry
there.
spell.
Yeah, where I wasn't getting any calls, I wasn't getting any work, and I was like, dang, I had some bills I had to pay. My savings were dropping, and I was this close. I was really close to just toss the towel. She saw me on the kitchen table. I was very stressed. She's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "No, I don't know. I think I'm just not cut out for this." And she was my motivation at that time. She was my rock, and she was the one who told me, "You're already in this. You did the hardest part. You opened your company. You took the leap. Yeah, that's the hardest part." She was like, "Let's hold on for a year, and if it doesn't work out, I support you with, quitting your dream. But for now, let's just keep trying." And thanks to her, man. I mean, as soon as she said that, I focused again, started knocking doors, started getting more work, started focusing, and that's what happened. I lost focus of what the goal was, and I just needed her to push me back on track. And she was there for me. Any other woman would have said, "Hey, you're right. We're struggling. Yeah, go find yourself a 9 to 5 again, make that stability again." And she held through it, and I'm grateful for that.
That's important, yeah, because any other woman would have probably just left when the money dries out. That's one thing that happens, and fortunately, I'm also blessed with a wife that's been very supportive of, all of my ventures. It's not easy for men sometimes, right, to deal with all these circumstances in life, but we got to remember why we do it for. It's not just for us, for us to enrich ourselves and keep all the money and it's to share it with the people we love, right? Like, your children,
Mm-hmm.
your wife, your family, your people. I think really that's the driving force behind a lot of entrepreneurs, that are of faith.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about the faith.
So I kind of derailed for a little bit for a while in my early 20s. I had an encounter this year, and then it just changed my way of seeing life. I was going through some issues, like you said, going back to the balancing your family with your work. I have two beautiful girls. They're my world. But I wasn't there. I was so focused on work and growing this business that I lost track of what was really important. My wife would tell me, "Yeah, you need to spend time with the girls." Like, my mentality at the time was, I'd rather grind right now, and when they're older, spend the time with them. But I was thinking the wrong way. You have to find a balance, and now I think I'm thankful for God. I had an encounter with Him this summer, and it just opened my eyes. The one day you go to church, and I went to church, and the one day I go to church, the pastor said a quote or a verse, and he was talking to me.
It touched the heart.
It touched the heart, and it definitely changed my ways of viewing family time.
Yeah.
And it helped me push through, and I changed a lot. My wife noticed it. My relationship got a lot better. I've learned to overcome the hurdles the business brings to you.
Yeah.
I used to be very stressed, and right now, less stressed. God has a plan. It went this way because that's the way He wanted it. It's a plan, and what are we gonna do to solve it? And I think it's important that you have a relationship with God. I'm not here to push any people to force them. You're free to do whatever you please. But in my case, he really helped me a lot. And moving forward, it's
absolutely. Amen. Jesus Christ, like for me, I've also had, very, very difficult times, not only in business, but also in like my personal life where I didn't know how I myself was going to get out of that situation, especially before I was married. And even during marriage too. It's like, those challenges keep coming, so where do you put, yourself when you look inside of you and you don't have the answers, right? And that's where that faith really, really holds you up and gets you through tough times, you know. And yeah, having a really good faith, I think, is a fundamental part of business. It is. My father talks to me about the same thing, and I tell him, when I try to talk to my dad who has the plumbing company, and I helped him manage it and scale it from, a few $100,000 a year to multi 100,000. Is I'm like, Dad, how did you start this business? Like, what was your business plan? Like, what was your proposal? What was your branding strategy? Like all these, business terms. And he's just like, faith in God, And so that's sometimes you don't need all the fancy, complicated stuff, that social media a lot of times tells you that you need. And I think that's another topic. What do you think about that? Like social media and kind of like the hustle culture.
Your fake gurus.
Yeah.
And trying to sell you courses and stuff.
The Lamborghinis, the mansions.
It looks nice on paper, and at the end of the day, you got to realize they're trying to sell a course. So they're trying to get to the youth and saying, hey, if you take this course, you're going to have this product at the end of the day.
It's the easy way. It's the easy way.
Your dream life. But then you get to a point in life where, is that really your dream?
Mm-hmm.
My dreams that I had when I was 17 aren't the same as what I have now,
Right.
Now with the family, with 2 girls, a beautiful wife, I'm focused on other things. My dreams are totally different than what I had. But like you said, these ads and these fake gurus are targeting the young kids that they don't know what they're going to do with their life. They don't have a plan. And they say, okay, if he's showing up on social media with the Lamborghini, that means he's doing something right. I should just join this course, give him my money. But they teach you, because I've looked into them. They give you the plan, but their plan is not the same as what you're going through. Your plan is going to be a lot different. And I think it's just a scam, if I'm being honest with you. It's just a scam. There is some good mentors out there. Mentors are important. I have a good older contractor that I talk to, and he's helped me a lot. He's given me some lessons. And when I mess up, he's like, I told you so. He's like, I told you that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gave me this good tip, and I'll give this tip to any new entrepreneur out there. This contractor, his name is Timothy.
Mm-hmm.
He owns a company that does roofing and siding, everything I do, but he's in his later stage of life, so he gave me a good tip and good advice. He was like, look, man, you're gonna start seeing money. Put that money aside, because you're gonna need it. And he was right. In a business, a business is like a roller coaster. You're gonna be up sometimes, you're gonna be down. And if you're not prepared for the down, you're gonna hurt. And a lot of people close because of that. I believe it's 5 years. Most companies don't make it through.
Yep, it's on average the 5th year. Most of the companies fail during that first 5 years.
And it's all because of cash flow. You didn't know how to administrate that money coming in and going out. And I'm guilty of that. I went through some rough patches, but nobody ever taught me how to be an entrepreneur. Nobody ever taught me how to run a business. Like you said, like you mentioned your father, he had faith in God. That's kind of where I came. I had faith that it was going to work out. But I didn't know anything about marketing. I didn't know anything about pitching a sale to a customer.
Payments. And I learned as I went, As I went, I was learning. And now I can defend myself. I actually rebranded last year. So you'll see a lot of my tigers out there. The tiger, yeah.
It's a funny story.
How'd the tiger come to be?
So the tiger came to be. It was either this or a T-Rex. And my wife bullies me because I'm a big Jurassic Park fan. And the T-Rex was taken.
Oh. By another roofing company, or?
It was a roofing company out in Tennessee, I believe.
Oh.
I mean, different state, but still, I didn't want to be competing with it. But yeah, I just chose a tiger. It symbolizes, strength, courage. And that's what I did. I got a freelancer out in somewhere in the Middle East, and he designed it for me, and it was pretty smooth. But the reason I did it was because I had a very generic logo.
Mm-hmm.
I did it on Canva. I did it myself, and I had a buddy of mine call me. He's like, "Hey, man, you're doing gas stations now." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Yeah, I just saw your logo at a gas station." He sent me a picture, exact same logo, different name on the bottom. And I
Really?
was like, yeah, this I need to do something about this.
So you picked out like a Canva template for
Yeah,
the logo. I got you.
and I just changed like the colors and stuff, but this guy's logo was exactly the same. And I said I need to do something to stand out.
Yeah.
You know, I want to stand out. So that's where the tiger came out. A buddy of mine in North Carolina has a roofing company. He has a cardinal.
Oh, really?
So he has a cardinal mascot, and he connected me with the freelancer that designed it. So
That was
that's where the tiger came from.
smart move. Yeah, for sure, smart move. And to allude a little bit about, what leads businesses to fail, right? And I've seen it myself too, right? Being in payments, um, overpaying, man, like overpaying on stuff. A lot of the times we get into things, and like you were just telling me about, your application too with Jobber, like you were paying for a subscription that was like for 5 years. So these hidden fees, believe it or not, I mean, I'm not gonna tell you that hidden fees are the reasons why a business can go out will go out of business, but it does contribute and it does affect your cash flow if you're overpaying on credit card fees. And like most contractors, especially because they're dealing with high ticket sales, right? It's $1,000, $4,000, $10,000 transactions. That 3 to 4% starts to add up, and it starts to be like an additional cost of doing business, per transaction. It's kind of like now I gotta, when you think about the processing fee when you're sending out an invoice, right? You're like, okay, I'm gonna get the money, right? But and then 3% of like $10,000 or 4% of $10,000 that you got to pay as a business owner. It's like, okay, that can sometimes be like material costs. You know what I mean?
That could be
Have you seen that? Like when you were first starting out, right, and you were sending out invoices and receiving electronic payments through credit cards or debit cards.
yeah, I definitely saw it, and especially the early days where you needed to get that money quick to keep investing and buying materials and doing the next job
For the next one.
So most of my clients pay check, but I do offer the card
As a convenience.
as a convenience to them. It's a lot easier. So they would charge me because they were charging me when it should have been. I learned later that I can pass it down to the customer, but they were charging me 3%, and then if I needed the money that same day, they were charging me an additional 3%. So I was basically paying for 6% of that job just to get my money.
Right.
You know, and luckily I met Bernardo, and he hooked me up with a payment process, sir, that helps a lot. I've seen like you said, every penny counts, and it adds up at the end of the year. I started doing the math, and I was like, I'm paying 3% here, 3% here, 3% here. You start adding it up, and that's a difference. Like you said, that's a nice dinner with the family.
That's a nice vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And so, no, it's cool to see that we're obviously in the same generation, right? Like what year were you born?
I was 97.
97. Yeah, so I'm 96. So we're seeing this new breed of entrepreneurs, and a lot more knowledgeable, not only in the work. There's still that's still the foundation of the business, is like knowledge of the work that you're putting out, but also of these different systems and processes that contribute to success. And so like you were talking about, like rebranding, right? Like it took you, when did you start the business?
So I started in 22.
In 22.
And
Okay.
then 24 I rebranded.
In 24.
2 years.
2 years to rebrand, but you caught on quick.
Yeah.
Because
And the reason is
some people never rebrand.
when I started, I was never my plan was never to be a contractor. I was supposed to be a subcontractor.
Yeah.
Working for other companies, providing the labor for them, and just not dealing with the customer at all.
Less risk.
Less risk, more reward. And then I started doing a couple of jobs on the side, got my license, I had my insurances. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try it out. So I started getting more jobs. It took me, from when I started doing that, it took me a year to rebrand. So I needed something to stand out, and that's where the tiger came. And I believe it's a head turner. We talk about this, my wife and I, and I'm like, a kid could be in the backseat of a lady's car, you know, and like, hey mom, look at the tiger. that mom's gonna turn around and like, oh, it says roofing. You know what? We have a leak at the house. You know, let's give them a call. And I've got a.
That's a good commercial idea right there.
Yeah, I've got a lot of work because of my signs and because of the tiger. I wrap my truck, you know.
And not only that, though, like after the rebrand, you really started ramping up on your marketing because you started doing Google ads, Facebook ads.
I started
the billboards,
posting more on social media. Before I decided to make the switch, I was just posting houses, finished products, you know. But I started thinking as a customer, not as a contractor. And as a customer, I'm gonna look at this feed and I'm like, okay, houses, okay. After a certain amount of scrolling, okay, it's all houses. So then I started integrating little videos. I started integrating the tiger, promotions, bold text, stuff that before I thought it was a little extra.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I was in the business, I realized why they did it, because it draws attention.
Mm-hmm.
And you want the attention because once you have that attention, it's going to lead you to a potential lead.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah, make sure you do your marketing right. Get good partners. Good software to help you also. It all goes hand in hand. And I think that's something that our generation has, that our parents didn't.
Right.
You know, they had a different mentality. They were, maybe they weren't as knowledgeable as us.
Right.
They're not tech-oriented people, you know, and I see it with my dad. I still have to help him with the emails and with stuff like that.
Translate and...
So, he actually picked up English.
Oh, he did. No, but English. Like a lot of other people, like our generation, like the 90s.
Oh yeah, I was a translator. I was a 7-year-old translator.
Yeah, exactly.
I was learning the language as well. They wanted me to translate. I don't know what that means either. And then you get in trouble because you can't translate.
Because you don't know, yeah. And then te castigan, and they're like,
what are you going to school for?
Exactly right. Yeah.
But yeah, no. They had a different mentality, and businesses in their days were different, you know? You did different type of business. It wasn't... So, back in the day, you know, a person knew you were a town company.
Yeah.
You know...
You were the guy.
You were the guy that did this, that fixed the plumbing. You were the roofer, the county roofer. And nowadays, there's so much competition, and, you know, I hate to say it, but I've seen a lot of companies go out of business because they couldn't keep up with the newer generations, with the marketing, with the ads, with the commercials. And me personally, I'm here to stay. So I had to adapt and imitate what the bigger companies were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worked out, you know. It's worked out. And now I used to think, why am I going to pay so much for marketing and I'm not getting a guarantee that I'm going to get more work? And then I started seeing the bigger companies like, oh, that's why.
Yeah.
You know, that's why they do it. That's why they stay so busy. That's why they have so many workers. It's because of that. They
invest in the long-term strategy, right? Because, I mean, one thing is, like you said, our parents, right? And my dad was the same way too. It's like, why am I going to pay for a website? Why am I going to pay for social media? You know, it's not going to give me work. But it's like, okay, somebody might see your tiger, right? They might notice it. They might not call right now. They might not call within the hour. But the more they see it, the more they're going to recognize in their brain subconsciously that you have what they need when they have a problem, when they have that problem, you know? Yeah. So it is a long-term play when it comes to like social media marketing and even advertising for leads, you know? After marketing, like you get into sales, right? So how's that going? Like, what's your process for... Or how have you adapted, you know, you adapted your marketing and your branding. How have you adapted your sales approach, strategy?
So my sales strategy, you know, YouTube is your best friend. You know, you can learn how to do anything on YouTube. Find some good videos on there and they'll teach you. So I knew nothing about sales. You know, I didn't know how to pitch to a customer, but I did know how to relate with the customer. And I did know how to talk to the customer, find stuff in common. You know, the customer doesn't want you to come in and sell them something right away. You know, they're gonna buy or purchase from you. Why are you gonna jump in and, hey, I'm gonna sell you this?
Right.
You know, take it easy. You know, talk, convert. And customers are different. Some people do want to get straight to the point. But I've seen that most of the customers, they want to have a conversation, um, something you can relate, and that's where I've got most of my business. Because like I said, I didn't know how to sell. I'm not a salesperson, but I knew how to talk to customers. I knew how to talk to people, and that's how I converted most of those leads. And I've gotten better, and watching videos on YouTube, tutorials, got me to a point where now I can sell most of my jobs. So yeah.
Yeah. I was just gonna say something about the thing. Um,
And another reason that I went with the billboards and the advertising, it wasn't so much to get more work. It was to put my name out there.
yeah.
I wanted that brand recognition. I just rebranded, and nobody knows the tiger.
Yeah.
But I want people to know the tiger.
Yeah, the last tiger I saw was, what was it called? Was he even in your generation? The tiger,
Frosted
the
Flakes?
cereal.
Frosted Flakes.
Frosted
Yeah,
Flakes.
Frosted
Yeah,
Flakes,
that's the last one, but he's kind of like faded out. Like he used to be in every TV
Isn't that
commercial.
sad?
Yeah.
That brands have just gone so bland.
They haven't been able to keep up. Like for like Frosted Flakes, like that used to be like back in the early
That was the
2000s.
cereal,
Yeah, like you would see it everywhere. You would see it at school. You would see it in TV, cartoons, everywhere. And then like they kind of just fade out because they don't adapt, right? Like talk about Blockbuster, bro. Do you remember walking into
Yep.
Blockbuster?
It was a different experience. Just walking in there, picking your movie, and then forgetting to return it and having to pay that late fee and whatnot. But it was an experience.
Yeah, a lot of late fees, bro.
But you get Netflix. That's why Netflix overtook that industry, because it brought convenience.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to bring convenience to your customer.
Yeah.
I used to be a pen and paper contract guy,
Yeah.
and then I started using software. Hey, oh, that's new. The previous contractor that came didn't have that tablet. Like, okay, that's interesting. So you're way ahead of the time. And especially the older folks, they love that. They're like, oh, I love that, the technology, this and that.
Yeah.
But it's convenient to them. All they have to do is open their email, approve, and lock it in.
Have you seen AI start to creep into?
I am guilty of using AI.
Okay.
ChatGPT.
Guilty of using AI.
Yeah, ChatGPT is my best friend. I just discovered. Well, I knew about him, but I started using them about 4 or 5 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
and they help me with my social media captions.
All right. Yeah.
I say, hey, I need a caption describing this work and offering this, and it gives you options. Do you want it professional? You want it casual? Do you want it fun? And you just pick one of those, and that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it just saves you time, and you don't have to go through that process of what's gonna appeal to the customers.
Right. Like what exactly do I have to say?
But I think we're very far from AI and robots taking over the trade industries.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if they ever do, it's gonna be a long time from now.
It's not going to be in our lifetime.
Yeah,
I don't think
so.
Yeah.
You still need. It's a lot can go wrong.
And this is when Elon Musk is when he was doing his robot. Have you seen the new robot, the Tesla robot?
Yeah, I've seen him.
So he said that the hardest part about building that robot was getting the hand. I think it was either Elon Musk or it was Mark Zuckerberg. I can't remember. One of those two
Elon.
billionaires. Yeah, Elon Musk. It was like,
Geniuses, man.
yeah, he's like the hardest part of the entire robot was getting the hand,
Mm-hmm.
to work. So that's what took them years to develop to finally have a beta version of the robot.
I mean, you wanna.
And now imagínate to like pick up a hammer and start.
You wanna create something that God created, and it's so sophisticated and so complex. You walk every day, you never think about it,
Yeah.
but then you start thinking like, wait, this is going on inside of me. I got a digestive system, I got veins pushing blood, and you start thinking about it like, damn, I'm special.
Yeah, that's
Like-
crazy. And then you think about like how we're trying to create a whole nother species, so to speak, with robots. But I like to bring it up, right? Because for people like young people like us, right? Our generation, like we've gone through some stuff, man. Like we've seen, okay, so first of all, the technology, I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, I remember when we were kids, right? We were still playing outside. We would still go to the McDonald's play place. You know, we would still ask for Happy Meals and get a little toy. Tristan's probably too too young for that.
I had Happy Meals.
Oh, he did. So like they would have a little. They would put a little toy in the Happy Meal, and I would play with that. But so we saw like the transition between like old and then we saw the new, and then we lived through like the recession of '08, and then we saw freaking COVID 10 years later, and now we're seeing AI revolution. So
yeah, there's a lot of jobs that are at risk, but believe me when I say the trades aren't.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you.
And that's what's messed up with this generation, we're millennials. We saw that transition, like you said, we were playing as kids, and we saw that transition. So my first phone was the Razr.
The Razr?
That Motorola Razr, the flip phone.
I remember the ads for that one. Was really cool.
That was like the coolest thing you could get, and I got it after it had been out for like a year or two, So, and that was the stuff. And now you look at your iPhones and like, it's only been a couple of years.
Yeah.
The technology is just growing faster than you can keep up with. And going back to the point that AI is taking over a lot of jobs, but this generation is a little distracted. Everybody wants to be a YouTuber. Everybody wants to be a TikToker, which is okay, but you're forgetting about the trades.
Facts.
And they look down on the trades.
Right.
They look down on the trades most of the time, not knowing that these tradesmen, man, they're loaded.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that the less people want to do them, the more opportunity and reward there is for those that do.
Mm-hmm.
Because less supply equals more demand.
The demand's always going to be there.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a leaky roof somewhere. There's always going to be a busted toilet,
Mm-hmm.
So demand's there, and it's just they need somebody to do it.
Yeah, and even. I mean, even now with like, the traditional route of going to college, getting a 4-year degree, and then going to school another 4 years and getting another degree, even that kind of like approach is even being talked about with a lot of like influential people. They're kind of going against it too, and they're giving light to the trades like, hey, you can get a 2-year certification or a trade school and start earning right off the bat in an apprenticeship, and you don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on does it weigh on the body? I think it in plumbing I know it does, and that is a topic that maybe doesn't get talked about too much, but
it is hard work, and I believe that's people are afraid of it,
yeah,
but nothing worth keeping. It's gonna be
easy.
Yeah. Like they say in Spanish, what easy comes, easy goes, and it's true. You gotta work hard to build something, and people don't want to do that no more. They don't want to put in the work.
Yeah.
They want the easy way out, and they see influencers like going back to that the ads where with the Ferraris and stuff.
Yeah, social media is very crowded.
You see that, and you're like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do to get to that point? If you don't want to put the work, you're never going to get there,
Yeah.
These guys, they started somewhere, like, they might have started with a hammer in their hand. They found that little gap and that opportunity and took advantage of it. And now they're selling these courses that, I'm not saying they're useless, because maybe out of 100 people that sign up, 2 or 3
actually do
the work.
Yeah.
So they're giving you the course, but people believe that just by buying the course, I'm going to be a millionaire. No, you can get the course, but you got to follow the steps. You got to put in the work, and that's how you make your money.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of educators and course creators, coaches, that are well intended to teach people and like share a business model that works. Anyway, let's talk on one more thing. Rapid fire. This is the last section. You ready? Okay, so we're gonna approach rapid fire. Okay, it's gonna be fast, rapid questions. Don't think about it. Just think the first thing that comes to your head. All right. What would be one sentence that you tell your younger self?
Get away from distractions.
Get away from distractions. What's one belief about business that most people get wrong?
That it's easy.
What's your biggest win so far?
My family.
Okay. Favorite tool or habit for staying focused?
Music.
finish this statement. Success is
Achievable.
all right. Very good. Very good. So, Erik, is there any final words you want to share with our little audience here? Where can we find you? How can we get in touch?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, hs.exteriors. Same on Facebook. And before we leave, I just want to leave you with the message. If you are thinking about starting your business, take the leap of faith. You're not losing anything. You got a lot to win and very little to lose. Worst case scenario, you end up where you're at right now. So take that leap of faith and go for it. You got my support.
Awesome, man. Great having you here.
Yeah, nice to be here, man.
Yeah, hopefully
Thanks for inviting me.
we get to do another one in the future too.
Yep.
So good to see
I
you.
look forward to it. It's a little nerve wracking for the first time, but I think we're getting comfortable with it.
Yeah, I think you're authentic, so that speaks volumes. So, anyways, thank you guys for joining in. Give us a follow, subscribe, comment, so that we can continue doing these episodes and bring valuable conversations to a lot of people who need it. So, see you on the next one, guys.